Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video I want to give you my thoughts on Kingdom Hearts 3. I've had to re-record this video so many times, so let me just get right into it. Almost forgot to record, no spoilers in this video, and on top of that, the gameplay is just going to be me killing random enemies from all the worlds I've announced, so there's not going to be any cutscenes or any spoilers in the actual video itself, but if you consider going to the worlds, I guess a spoiler because you've stayed in the dark about all that, you've been warned. First of all, I have platinumed the game as of recording this video. It took me 22 hours and 16 minutes to finish the game on proud mode while mostly ignoring the side content, and then another 28 approximately hours in order to actually finish the remaining post-game content. So I've got a pretty good grip on everything that I want to say, and thus, let's say it. So let's hit these points one at a time. I am going to group up some more rudimentary things in regarding to the game, things that you can praise, but don't really, enhance the game that much more for me. The music, of course, being able to pull from all the Disney OSTs, plus Kingdom Hearts' original OST, has always been a pleasure, and I don't think it ever will not be a pleasure in the Kingdom Hearts series. On top of that, the graphics, after seeing everything and after playing 0.2, the graphics for this are a huge step up. It feels good, it looks good, sometimes maybe a little too shiny, a little too glossy, but that's such a minor complaint that it's not going to affect how beautiful all of the areas actually look. And on that note, the work they did on the worlds in Kingdom Hearts 3 takes them to a whole nother level. I would have killed for worlds like this in the previous Kingdom Hearts games, with these vast areas and just so much exploration that can be done across the various nooks and crannies. On a first playthrough, and even when you go back and visit in the post-game, you don't even know how you could have possibly seen these things the first time, and all the little treasure chests and lucky emblems that are hidden all over the place. The collectible game is on point in this one, and I really gotta praise them for their level design here. Next up is the gameplay, and while I definitely had a lot of fun with Kingdom Hearts 3's gameplay, I definitely have a few critiques on it. For one, I regularly complain when in franchises you play the same character in multiple games, and a lot of the times it just seems like the character goes back to square one every time you start a new game. Kingdom Hearts has actually done a pretty good job of taking our characters through an adventure and giving them new powers in every game. Even if they do reset you to level 1, you do actually feel like the character's making some degree of progress and getting more OP and more OP. Kingdom Hearts 3 is the epitome of that, where it feels like Sora is just capable of anything. There's almost no threat on any of the difficulties in this game, and that led to one of the easiest playthroughs I've ever had. That of course comes with the disappointment that there is no critical mode, at least not upon the launch of the game. I'm really holding out for an update, maybe even a quote final mix sort of update that would introduce critical mode and maybe some other changes to the battle system to make it a little more challenging for those of us who are seasoned vets with the Kingdom Hearts franchise. People who aren't seasoned vets likely are still going to have some trouble if they're playing on the proud mode, and that's a good thing because it means that for those of you who may be new to the franchise, maybe just picked it up and want to try a harder difficulty, this will be the easiest starting point for you to get in on the higher difficulties and may even encourage you to go back to the older games and test those difficulties, which are on a whole nother level than Kingdom Hearts 3. One of the main reasons for the ease of the combat, I could say Sora being OP is one easy way to put it, and it's kind of an understatement. There's so many different things that Sora can do that there's no situation that's beyond your grasp. Whether it's the attractions that pop up way too much and are basically a giant test of invulnerability frames, whether it be your team attacks which do a ton of damage and again send you into a cutscene making you unable to take damage, whether it's your rage form saving you, even though you're probably going to have to sacrifice your HP a little bit in order to get out of it in time without putting yourself in danger otherwise, or whether or not it's any of these things that just make Sora invulnerable for such long periods of time. It's what really, kind of depreciates the difficulty of the game. Now, I will say that it's not easy all the time. There are some gimmicky parts of the game that can catch you off guard. And on top of that, the final boss in particular actually is relatively challenging. I was pretty surprised how easily I blew through the game and then had to adjust a few things when I got to the game's final boss. And honestly, the entire final stretch, while not super difficult, definitely had my heart pumping a little bit faster than the rest of the game. I don't even think the bosses are poorly designed. I actually think if you threw these same bosses into Kingdom Hearts 2, I'd be praising the game for its overall boss design. But Sora is just so strong, and it took away a lot of my enjoyment when I played through the actual story. Now, I've started to lean into some of the issues I have with Kingdom Hearts 3, and that's kind of going to lead into one of the biggest ones that I have, and that is the actual story of Kingdom Hearts. Now, I don't think I'm alone in saying that Kingdom Hearts is a game that's regularly criticized for its story and its storytelling in general. I mean, when you have Final Fantasy characters mixed with these original Disney characters, with the old school Disney characters, and there's all sorts of things that, can make it seem like a mess on the surface. But when I look back at the old Kingdom Hearts games, it really didn't start to get that weird until, at least I feel, Dream Drop Distance, which is out in 2015. That's where it really felt like the Kingdom Hearts story kind of lost the plot. And I kind of figured that maybe they'd bring it back to a more understandable part with Kingdom Hearts 3. And that's coming from someone who has watched back cover and knows how the Union Cross story goes and all the various things that we need to be looking out for as people who have been longtime supporters of the franchise. But Kingdom Hearts 3 has one major flaw, in that Kingdom Hearts is the story I was here to see. And the game feels so much more focused on retelling Disney stories in much more emphasized fashion than they did before. There are sometimes 6-minute scenes that are straight up playing out portions from movies that have existed, and Sora's not even visible in it, if not for maybe just a few seconds to remind you, hey, you're playing Kingdom Hearts. And that takes up a good 75 to 80% of the story itself. There are cutscenes with Sora and his allies and the struggles that they're going through on occasion, but they're peppered so thin that by the time you get to them, you're just thirsty for more. And the little bit that you get just doesn't make up for the long stretches of strictly Disney stories with minor intricacies thrown in there with the Kingdom Hearts villains. And honestly, the way the Kingdom Hearts villains are used in this one isn't that satisfactory in the individual Disney worlds either. They make an appearance, they maybe tease something to you, give you a little bit of information, but they're so largely irrelevant to the actual plot of what's happening because they're so tied into following the general way that the movies that they're pulling from went. That's not to say the story doesn't have its tear-jerking moments, and moments where you really are glad to be a Kingdom Hearts fan. The last 5 to 6 hours of the story in particular is literally all I could have asked for in regards to story, and that's kind of depressing to some degree because I really would have loved to have seen them kind of stretch out the Kingdom Hearts story and, do a little bit of a better job with it throughout the rest of the game. Those 5 or 6 hours, if you release that to me as a $15, $20 game, I'd even pay $30 for it. The last 5 to 6 hours are just so good. The bosses that are there, the way the story plays out, it's very Kingdom Hearts and it's very satisfying to long-term fans with all of the story elements that get tied up towards the end of this game. But even with that, it just can't help but feel like the story is one of the weakest in Kingdom Hearts 3 that it's ever been. Nothing was being set up, nothing was really being developed. It all just kind of came to a head and then bam, it's over. And that's even more depressing because the game, while it does feel like an end, without saying too much as I'm trying to keep spoilers out of this, it doesn't really feel like it ever meant to be the end in the first place. Now, anyone who's a longtime fan of the series no doubt knows that Kingdom Hearts 3 is not the end of Kingdom Hearts. It is the end of what Nomura has officially called the Dark Seeker Saga. And knowing that, obviously we expect there to be teases towards future games and whatnot, but it feels like Kingdom Hearts 3 cared so much more about taking digs at Final Fantasy franchises, or characters, I guess you should say in particular, and setting up Kingdom Hearts 4 that it kind of forgot that it had to be Kingdom Hearts 3 before anything else. There's some other things that I could say about the story, but it would have to go into spoiler territory, and I may have to do a separate video altogether to really get my frustrations out about these things, because it really left me with a lukewarm feeling at the end. You get a tear out of me for a few of those scenes, but you don't get much more, and I don't really feel satisfied after finishing the Kingdom Hearts story, even with their secret epilogues and endings that come afterwards. And then after I finished the story, I was met with my third disappointment. So we've labeled difficulty and we've labeled the story. Well, the difficulty kind of ties into this third one, and that's the lack of a post-game. Now, for people who are familiar with Kingdom Hearts 1's initial release in Japan, or even Kingdom Hearts 2 pre-final mix, saying that it's weak on post-game is kind of unfair, because we're probably more comparing it to Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix, or Kingdom Hearts 1's North American release, or Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, or Birth by Sleep Final Mix. We're generally comparing it to these Final Mix versions. But here's the thing. Final Mixes existed because of the way that game updates had to be done back then. You couldn't just patch a game after it was released. So releasing a brand new version made the most sense. I mean, Capcom's the master of that, going back to Street Fighter and all the versions of Street Fighter 2 that released. But that was kind of their only option. They couldn't just patch those console games that they had released to you. It's not the same now, and it leaves me with a little bit of hope for the future, but Kingdom Hearts 3 is the weakest in terms of post-game of any of the Kingdom Hearts games, even for their initial releases. I'd like to remind everyone that Kingdom Hearts 1, when it launched in Japan, was missing pretty much all the super bosses we came to know in North America. It pretty much had the Olympus Coliseum, and I think maybe one of the bosses, I think it was the Phantom. I don't even think it had that. Maybe it did. I'm having a hard time remembering, but it basically had no post-game. And considering that the Olympus Coliseum in Kingdom Hearts 1 is technically optional content, but it's like kind of not really at the same time because of its implications in the story, it was very empty there, but it still felt more full than this. And then you look at the North American release, final mixes. Kingdom Hearts 2 definitely had a lack of super bosses. I remember being disappointed at how quickly I went through the pretty much one optional boss that game had when it initially released pre-final mix. But something's just missing from Kingdom Hearts 3, and maybe it's because the game is so much easier that the little bit of post-game it had just felt even worse than normal. But you pretty much just have one optional boss, and then a bunch of small optional battles that you can do, none of which should really challenge you much to a higher level just because of how strong Sora is. It just doesn't have the technique or the finesse that maybe the earlier games had, because even when the bosses are trying to be unfair here, you get to be way more unfair back to them. Honestly, I would take the one optional boss, or I guess the handful of optional bosses in 0.2. I personally feel 0.2 had a more robust post-game, and it really didn't have a more robust post-game, but it was way more satisfying from a gameplay perspective. Kingdom Hearts 3 focuses way too much on mini-games, which is not something that's new to the franchise, but it's taken to a whole nother level. Classic Kingdoms games, which replicate Game & Watch, or even Tiger Electronic handheld games, are a majority of the things that you're going to be doing. Small little 2-button press mini-games in order to cook a new food that you can use as a buff, but honestly, you really don't need it with how strong Sora is. You have a sliding mini-game that's just a pretty much worse version of a snowboarding minigame, and I could go on, but there's more and more. Honestly, the most satisfying postgame was probably the gummy ships, and even that really only has a couple of interesting challenges until you actually level up and get some new parts, but it was more robust than the rest of the postgame. So I don't know, I was really disappointed with the story and the difficulty of the game overall. The game begs for a final mix, and I mean that in so many ways, and if they release it, I'll definitely do it, and maybe I'll even do a level 1 Proud playthrough before then. But level 1 in this game isn't even as fun as Kingdom Hearts 2 level 1, so I guess I can't make any promises on that front. Now, did I hate Kingdom Hearts 3? Absolutely not. You know, considering that a lot of people say, oh, we waited 13 years for this, realistically, it was probably in about a minor development for maybe 3 years, and then an actual full-on development for 3. I don't think we have any exact numbers. It was revealed at E3 2013. They probably had just a little bit done before that, and they were still simultaneously developing Dream Drop Distance until that released in 2015. On top of that, they were clearly working on other things as well, but I have to believe that the game really only took about 3 or 4 years to make in full development. And thus, I'm not going to judge it kind of the same way I would like Final Fantasy 15, for example. But I couldn't help but feel like it just didn't know what it wanted to be. And even though I know it wasn't rushed, and it definitely concluded things for the stories that we had in place already, it didn't feel like a conclusion. It just felt rushed. And I know it wasn't, but that's how it felt. And that's a really, really bad thing. I would call Kingdom Hearts 3 my Final Fantasy 15 of the Kingdom Hearts franchise, and unfortunately, as much as I was okay with Kingdom Hearts, much as I was okay with Final Fantasy 15, unfortunately, I'm as much okay with Kingdom Hearts 3, which isn't any better or worse, and I had probably higher anticipations for this than I did Final Fantasy 15. So that's probably affecting my bias a little bit, but it is what it is, and I just wanted to get this off my chest. If you enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 3 more than me, great. But me, I personally would stick to Kingdom Hearts 2, Final Mix, or Birth by Sleep as my go-to games in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Heck, I'd even take maybe Rechain of Memories at this point. Nah, just kidding on that one. But anyway, it took me a lot of recordings to actually get my thoughts out. This is the probably 5th or 6th full recording I've done, and I just deleted all the previous ones, but I think I'm going to stick with this one because I like the way it turned out, even with a few hiccups. Again, going to be hopefully playing through any updates they may do to the game, hopefully free, because I don't want to have to buy another full game like I did with Final Fantasy 15, and they were kind of past the days of purchasing a whole new game for Final Mix like we did way back when, as much as I think this desperately needs it. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for me. Let me know what you thought of Kingdom Hearts 3 if you finished it, and if you haven't, then, well, you've got my thoughts on it. Now, you can make your decision. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. I want to post my Kingdom Hearts 3 playthrough, at least through the story itself, maybe through one of the optional stuff, but I don't want to post me playing a bajillion mini-games. I'm just not interested in posting that to YouTube. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see all of you in the next video, and until then, take care.